Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the case of Viktoria Nasyrova? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I will put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. First, I'll look at the background of this case, move to the timeline of the crime, then offer my analysis. Viktoria Nasyrova was born on December 15, 1975, in Russia. On October 5, 2014, a friend of Viktoria's, named Alla Alexenko, mysteriously disappeared. Allegedly, Viktoria was supposed to bring fur coats and $6,000 in cash to Alla's daughter, Nadia Ford, who lived in New York City. Despite saying that she would, Viktoria never made the trip to New York. This made it seem like Viktoria had kept the cash and the fur coats and caused harm to Alla. The police investigated and discovered that on the day Alla went missing, she was in the passenger seat of a vehicle that Viktoria was driving. This vehicle had been rented by Viktoria. Nadia flew from New York to Russia to investigate her mother's disappearance. She discovered that some of her mother's belongings had been stolen. The police questioned Viktoria, but they did not take her into custody. Later, they issued a warrant for her arrest. However, by this time, she had already left the country. In April of 2015, Alla's body was found. She had been the victim of homicide. The Russian authorities didn't know it at the time, but Viktoria was in New York City, where she worked as an escort and dominatrix. She maintained an online presence to attract men. After meeting them for a date, she would drug them and steal their belongings. The men found themselves more dominated than expected. Now moving to the timeline of the crime. In August of 2016, Viktoria tried to become friends with a woman named Olga Zvik, who worked as an eyelash technician in Queens. Olga was not interested in becoming Viktoria's friend. On August 28, Viktoria tried a different tactic to get close to Olga. She told her she wanted her eyelashes repaired for an upcoming trip to Mexico. Olga wasn't working that day, but Viktoria said it was an emergency. Even though this was out of the ordinary, Olga permitted Viktoria to visit her home in the Forest Hill neighborhood of Queens in order to repair her eyelashes. When Viktoria arrived at Olga's residence, Olga noticed that Viktoria had 3 slices of cheesecake. Viktoria consumed 2 of the slices and insisted that Olga consume the third one. Olga ate the slice of cheesecake and became dizzy and nauseated less than 20 minutes later. She vomited violently and lost consciousness. The last thing that Olga remembered was seeing Viktoria walk around her residence. On the next day, August 29, Olga's landlord found her unconscious in bed wearing lingerie. The heater in the room was set to maximum, and pills were scattered all around Olga. She was transported to a local hospital and treated. After Olga returned home, she realized that several items were missing. For example, $4,000 in cash, a gold ring, purses, her passport, and her employment authorization card. The theft was reported on September 2, and the police started investigating. They identified the pills, which had been found scattered around Olga when she was unconscious, as a sedative called phenazepam. In the trash, the police found the container for the cheesecake. There were a few crumbs still left in it. They were tested, but initially no drug was detected. Later, after a more advanced test was conducted, the crumbs came back positive for phenazepam. The police were interested in speaking to Viktoria, mostly because of the attempted murder part, but they did not know where she was. Furthermore, investigators were not sure what to make of Olga's report. They wondered if maybe she made up the story about Viktoria and the cheesecake. Nothing really happened with the investigation, and the case went cold. In 2017, Nadia Ford, the daughter of the woman Viktoria allegedly murdered in Russia, hired a private investigator to work on the case. The investigator noticed that Viktoria had posted images online. In one of those images, she was in a motor vehicle. The dashboard and the stitching on the seat were visible. The investigator figured out what model car she was in based on this information. It looked like she was in the Sheepshead Bay neighborhood of Brooklyn, New York. the investigator sent people to that neighborhood to look for the car, which led them to an apartment building matching another reflection in Victoria's sunglasses. As it turns out, the vehicle was owned by Victoria's boyfriend, who lived in that apartment building with her. On March 20, 2017, the private investigator contacted the police, who arrested Victoria that same day. In her residence, they found items belonging to Olga. These were the same items which Olga had reported stolen. On February 15, 2018, Victoria was charged with attempted murder and other offenses involving her alleged attack on Olga. Victoria also faced charges for drugging and robbing 3 men in Brooklyn, but the men were no longer interested in cooperating with the prosecution. This may have been because of the dominatrix part, like they did not want to testify about their unusual sexual behavior. The state reached a plea bargain. She was sentenced to 90 days in jail, but she had already been in jail longer than that, awaiting trial in the other case. While she was at Rikers Island, Victoria was attacked by other inmates. She was eventually awarded $325,000 by the city of New York because they failed to protect her. Victoria's attempted murder trial started on January 30, 2023. On February 8, she was found guilty of attempted murder in the second degree, attempted assault in the first degree, assault in the second degree, unlawful imprisonment in the first degree, and petit larceny. On April 19, 2023, Victoria was sentenced to 21 years in prison. She could be released in 15 years based on receiving credit for time served, which means she will complete her sentence in 2038 at the age of 55. In her case, there is a difference between being released from prison and being set free. Victoria is still facing charges in Russia for the alleged murder, so that is probably where she will be going after prison. Now moving to my analysis. Viktoria Nasyrova maintains her innocence, although she really doesn't have many supporters. The state, of course, is satisfied with the conviction, believing justice was served. This brings me to the question, was Victoria guilty of attempted murder? Let's take a look at the evidence both for and against the idea that she was guilty, starting with the inculpatory factors. Victoria was on the run from Russian authorities for allegedly committing murder. She was convicted in connection with offenses in Brooklyn that involved drugging victims and stealing from them. Victoria arranged to meet Olga under unusual circumstances, namely an emergency eyelash appointment. Victoria and Olga looked similar, and they both spoke Russian. This makes it seem like Victoria may have targeted Olga to steal her identity. Olga claimed that she became sick and was rendered unconscious after eating a slice of cheesecake that Victoria gave to her. When Olga was found, the heat in her room was set at maximum, which is particularly dangerous in August. This is consistent with somebody trying to kill her. The authorities determined that the plastic box the cheesecake came in contained a sedative and Victoria's DNA. The property that Olga had reported stolen was found in Victoria's residence. Moving to the exculpatory factors, there is no way to prove that Victoria laced the cheesecake with the sedative. Victoria suggested that Olga could have planted the drug in the cheesecake. The motive in this case was based on the idea that Victoria wanted to steal Olga's identity. However, Victoria pointed out that this theory didn't make sense, saying, quote, "She is not a U.S. citizen. She doesn't have a green card. She doesn't have any rights. What is the point for me to try to kill this woman?" Unquote. Victoria did have a history of drugging people. However, none of her victims died. Maybe she didn't intend to kill Olga. Rather, she just wanted to incapacitate her in order to steal from her. When considering all the evidence in this case, do I think that Victoria was guilty of attempted murder? Yes, in my opinion, she was guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. What do I think happened in this case? This is just a theory, my opinion. Victoria was impulsive, irresponsible, self-centered, grandiose, sadistic, cold, callous, reckless, remorseless, excitement-seeking, hedonistic, materialistic, Machiavellian, manipulative, deceptive, calculating, falsely believed she was special, and had a sense of entitlement. Victoria's defense attorney said that she had a mental illness, but never received proper treatment. It's not clear what mental disorder the defense attorney was talking about, or if Victoria really had a mental disorder at all. After running into some difficulty with the law in Russia, namely the alleged murder, Viktoria moved to New York City, where she drugged men and took their property. At some point, Viktoria took notice of Olga. She realized how they looked alike and thought it would be convenient to steal Olga's identification. Viktoria tried to kill Olga, but was not successful. In prison, Viktoria's grandiosity was on full display. She produced what she referred to as 3D artwork for other inmates and was very proud of it, saying, quote, "I can call what I make without false modesty works of art. Even for me, they look like little miracles," unquote. Viktoria's false belief that she was special was also evident. When talking about how she had trouble making friends, Viktoria said, quote, "I don't want to sound like I'm better than others, although in some ways I am. But to find a person of your intellectual level, it's hard to find people here that I can really communicate with. I want to talk about art, culture, travel, books," unquote. With that attitude, it's astounding that Viktoria is not making friends. Whatever could the problem be? Viktoria believes that she's entitled to better treatment in prison, saying, quote, "The food here is garbage," unquote. It's ironic that somebody who tried to transform Cheesecake into a deadly weapon would complain about food quality. However, in this instance, Viktoria may have a point. Based on the experiences of many prisoners, being served garbage would actually represent an upgrade in the quality of prison food. Viktoria has made no effort to improve herself, perhaps believing that it's impossible to improve upon perfection. For example, she refused to go to mandated anger management courses. I wonder if the prison staff understands what the word mandated means. Viktoria said, quote, "They don't care about what they are doing. They are not going to help me. I do have anger issues, but they are not the kind of anger issues that these classes can help me with," unquote. Viktoria explained that prison officials need not worry about her harming herself because with her intellect, if she wanted to do that, she would have done it already. Apparently, Viktoria is pleased about one thing in prison. She believes that she is a celebrity. She stated, quote, "Everybody knows who I am here. There are a few Russian-speaking inmates here, and before I arrived, they were asking them about me. You know she's coming here. She's a legend," unquote. If Viktoria is complaining this much about being in prison in America, she will have no shortage of commentary to offer when she gets to Russia. For an attempted murderer who is fascinated with food, she won't find prison in Russia to be a piece of cake, no matter how much she sugarcoats it. But the good news is she will finally get her just desserts. Those are my thoughts on the case of Viktoria Nasyrova. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They consistently generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be informative. Thanks for watching.